Welcome to Anecdotes for Success with Matt and Paul. Storytelling is an art form, emphasizing the value and learning that is created through personal experience. Our purpose is to share these stories and experiences with the listener. Everyone has a powerful testimony. Let's use them to level up to our best life with truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective.
Big shout out to Isaac Mather for the new podcast intro. You can check Isaac's music out on all socials or directly at isaacmathermusic.com. Here we are, sticking to our format, Matt, episode 116. It's a gentleman that I call the most interesting man on earth, like the Dos Equis guy. Matt just met him 60 seconds ago. We have Musial on. Val and I go back a little bit, not real far, but I feel like it's been forever with some of the adventures we've had. And thanks for coming on tonight.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Val, start wherever you want to go in the story. And trust me, between Matt and I, there's never a shortage of questions. I might have oversold you a little bit in the beginning. I apologize for that, but I really believe that.
No worries. I mean, I'll start kind of like in the middle just to get you guys kind of the idea of where I came from and what happened. But I grew up in Poland and managed to arrive into U.S. in mid '80s. Okay, and that trip was adventure. Okay, I mean, back then. Poland was under still communist regime, so it was not so easy for people to travel. So basically, in order to get here, I had to find a ways to get out of the country. Not everybody, we were not holding passports. That was not so easy to just leave and travel around the world. So you have to find like a friendly country to where the government will allow you to travel. Okay. So happened that at that time, Algeria, Northern Africa, was sort of like going towards socialism, and there was a lot of collaboration between European Eastern Bloc and Algeria. So there was a tour that I joined, and I went to Algeria. So spent with these guys 2 weeks traveling through desert and visiting country. And the last day, when everybody hopped on the plane to go back to Poland, I just took a detour and went to town. The plan was basically to make it from Algeria, get it on a ferry, and make it back to Europe, to France, and then go from there. Didn't work out that way. Basically, I learned what the Ramadan is when everything is closed for a month. Now you have Islam holidays and Catholic holidays. So basically, I had to get a visa in order to go to any European countries. And that's a lengthy process. It turns out it wasn't just simply, you go show your passport, pay fees, and, here's your visa, you can go. No, they have to make sure that you didn't apply in different country, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a whole process. So when I started with French embassy, which basically they were open because of all these different holidays, they were open only on 2 days a week, right? So there was I think it was Thursday and Friday. No, wait a minute. I think it's only Monday and Tuesday they were open because of all the holidays and everything else, right? And then for Ramadan, everybody closed for a month. So there was all kind of delays, right? So here I am, all in this strange country. Basically, I lived on the streets because there was no other way. You have to preserve all the money you have because at some point you have to pay for tickets, right?
Val, sorry to interrupt. How old are you at the time?
Oh, 20.
20. And is it you're alone? No,
Yeah.
no wife
all
or children or anything, just you.
All alone. Okay, so I'm 20.
Fascinating.
And well, so since after I realized that the French route was really lengthy and most likely will not be successful, I went to Italian embassy and was fortunate enough that they were a lot friendlier, and they got me visa pretty much same day. and so I was able to go to Italy. But it, throughout this month basically journey in Algeria, there was a lot of stuff going on. You have to find a safe spot to live. So basically, you just find a little bush you can wrap around it, so nobody can see you, and just hide, because you never know what's going to happen when you're asleep, right? So anyway, after a month in Algeria, finally I made it on a plane and landed in Italy. Basically spent some time in Italy, found a job, and then eventually, when my visa was about to expire, I went to a refugee camp. Okay, and that's basically the refugee camp. It's, I would say, like prison with open gates. Okay, because there are, like, old barracks where everybody basically is confined to these barracks. But you're free to go out and go to town and enjoy it if you have any money. But you can walk around, so you're not completely locked up. But it feels like prison because basically you don't do anything. Okay, you just sit there, and wait for your fate. And what they do in refugee camp, basically they interview you. You have to go through several different interviews depending where you go, and what the plan is for the future, which country will take you, etc., etc. So it takes, depending on luck and the country of ultimate destination, might take about from 9 months to 3 years. You can sit in that refugee camp. So I was lucky enough that it took me only 9 months, right? So after that, I basically I had a sponsor in U.S. We flew. They put me on a plane. I flew into U.S. Well, and then U.S. journey began. So they set me up with, like, first job. So basically I was making like $4.25 an hour. Little tiny room that I had in the basement, where basically I shared that room with 13 other guys. So we had like mattresses on the floor, and in order to walk around, you have to lift these mattresses because there was no room. But when you have money, when you have no money, basically anything, it's helps. So you have to just go through it. But that was the first job I had.
Where in the U.S. were you, Val?
Well, look, if I'm Polish, I'm gonna end up in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, like every other Polak. That's where we were.
That's where. Okay, that's where it is. Got it. I didn't
That's
know
what it
that.
was. So yeah, that was Greenpoint. Okay, but basically, it was very depressing because you're sitting in that refugee camp, you're thinking, okay, well, you're gonna arrive into U.S. It's promised land. It's gonna be all nice, and you get a job, and everything's gonna work out, right? Well, it didn't look that way. So first 2 weeks were extremely depressing, but finally, I got my shit together, and 6 months later, got a different job, and every 6 months, I was just finding different opportunities and move up, and start making some decent money. Switch apartments, and basically, one of the jobs that I had was I met my wife, and then basically from there, we put our heads together and start our own business. And everything after that, it's fantastic. Since Paul, actually meeting Paul was actually the peak of my career, I guess, or all the journey, U.S. journey. I mean, well, no, I'm kidding, but the thing is, it's just basically hard work paid off. Bottom line, I mean, we had ops. As you guys all know, not all businesses are successful, so we had our ups and downs. But we made it. Okay, so 4 kids later, everything is good. And then kids are in school, graduating, so everything is fine.
Val, that's fascinating. I don't even know if Paul and I have ever talked about. I am absolutely fascinated by communism and socialism and that period of time. I've read every book I can get my hands on. I've spent time in Austria and Czech Republic and Eastern Germany, and just fascinated by it. one of the first questions I have is like, what was life like in Poland those first 20 years before you left?
Well, that's an interesting question. See, my father was, at the time, he was high up in military. Okay, he was in Air Force, so he was like a second man in command of Air Force. So one thing that happened because of me leaving, he was fired. Okay, so he was like, basically, if you cannot, well, you can look at all different ways. They might have think that, well, we can't have this guy around because if somebody gets a hold of his son, he's going to sell all the secrets,
Compromise, sure.
all that. So that's one way of looking at it. The other way, well, you cannot control your son. How can you control your troops? That kind of stuff. So basically, he was like really persona non grata. They didn't want him around. Okay. Eventually, it worked out for him because then, the system changed in Poland. And since he was like, quote unquote prosecuted, now he is, on the right side of the new regime. Right. So he got his job back. He's got his pension back, et cetera, et cetera. So at the end of the day, it kind of worked out for him. But going back, how was my life living in Poland? I mean, it's, don't know how much you read, but basically living in Poland, it's in any of these countries, it's, you have very limited choices. Okay. Mm-hmm. So government handles basically everything. Okay. No private schools. You go to school, whatever the school you're assigned to. With jobs, you just, get a job, and then basically government will give you an apartment. Okay. I mean, my father was very lucky when he won a lottery. I mean, he still had to pay for his first car, but he won a lottery. He was like, got his little, Fiat, when he was like maybe like 36, 37. There was no way of just, going to the dealership and buying a car. I remember in 80s where, there was like a little bit before. There were like, basically, I think those late 70s when we had all these oil crises.
Yep.
The economy tanked. Okay, and you walk into the supermarket, and you have like one row of mustard, another row of vinegar, and that's it. There was nothing basically on the shelves. So things were not pretty. And ultimately, what government done was they created like a coupons, sort of like a food stamps, but it's not like what you see here that you pay with food stamps. They were basically rations. So you have, if you had kids under 18, you were able to buy chocolate. If you didn't have kids under 18, the family would not get chocolate. There was so much meat you can buy, so much butter you can buy, that kind of stuff. So there were some rough times, but made it through, and ultimately things changed in Poland, and now Poland is thriving. It's one of the better Eastern European economies.
Well, I was supposed to go there. But our flight got canceled because it was actually right when the Ukraine thing started. That started while I was in Berlin, actually, believe it or not. But it wasn't why I got canceled. It was because of high winds. So I have not been to Poland, but it's on my short list for sure. But Paul, I got one more question, then I'll let you get in there. Val, I had no idea what your background was, Val, but this is a subject that is just I can't tell you how fascinating. My library.
I knew you'd like it. I knew you. That's why I didn't want to tell you.
I have more books on World War II and communism and Mao and Stalin and just that whole thing in my little library up there than I have on any other subject. So for whatever that's worth. How long until you were able to go back after, I guess, sneaking away, if you will? Like when did you see your father again, or any other family member?
Well, it wasn't that long. I was still. It took a while for me to just get all the paperwork in place here in U.S. But I was able to travel on a refugee passport.
Okay.
Maybe like 3-4 years after I came to U.S.
Okay. Well, you say it's
it wasn't
not
really
that long.
I mean, the things were changing in Poland. They were more accepting stuff, so it wasn't so bad anymore.
Right.
Yeah, but it wasn't so bad.
It,
And
it was kind of towards the end.
yeah, it's so it wasn't that bad. But I just to blow your head off. Okay, before all that happened, before I left Poland, actually I went to college in Moscow.
Oh, no
So
kidding! Wow,
we can do prequel.
wow. What were you studying, and how did
In
you end up studying whatever it was?
industrial electronic, and basically, well, since the both countries were in same political bloc. Okay, the Russians were trying to convert all the countries in this, what they called the Warsaw Pact, right?
Hmm.
To be like the satellites, like they all the republics in Russia were, people spoke Russian. Okay, um, like that's why now we have this conflict in the Ukraine where people are mixed. So
Yep.
that's what they were trying to do with all the other countries. I mean,
Hmm.
a lot of failures. I mean, there was some uprising in Poland several times, in Czechoslovakia, in Hungary. So you had like basically the army had to come with tanks, to basically stop all the uprising. I mean, it wasn't really cool, but it's an interesting part of history just to talk about it. Okay, but it's there was a lot going on, and basically, so how did I end up in Russia? Basically, well, since my father was military, they were trained in Russia. Okay, so we moved with the whole family to Moscow, and I finished high school there and start college. So there was kind of like a natural transition type of a thing. And then we had the situation in 1980 where in Poland the solidarity movement started, and they basically they didn't want the Russians didn't want too many of Polish students in their country, so they
Wow.
expelled us. Okay, there was
Wow.
like 10 guys from my university. 10 guys had to go back home. So I went back home. See, we're going back in time now, but it's fine. I went back home, and before I was able to go back to college in Poland, the government was trying to draft me. So in order to avoid that draft, there was one of the other reasons why I took that trip,
Mm.
because it's in the fall I would have to go to military. Okay, so I took the trip in the summer, and basically to avoid that draft, ultimately end up here. So it was kind of
Paul, one last question. It'll be quick.
That's
Val,
take your time. I got three.
you were studying. You said you were studying something with electronics.
Yeah, industrial electronics, what's called.
Why? That would be sounds like a interesting choice. Why'd you choose that?
I mean, well, that's what I was interested in. I mean, I'm not doing my job right now has nothing to do with industrial electronic anymore. I mean, it was just something that I was interested in back in the days, and that's basically what I studied.
Got it. Got it.
The funny thing is that is I mean, we had all these computers. The computer would take that like entire floor. I mean, it was just the technology was like so primitive, compared to
Yeah,
what we have
primitive,
right now.
antiquated. Sure. Yeah.
So
I'm a little bummed because my first question was, when you're 20, were you reading books on the founding fathers and George Washington and you decided to defect? But part of it was because of the situation you would have been in the fall of military, right?
Mhm. Part of it,
What
yes.
I mean, was there more to it to that, or was that the icing on the cake?
It was. I mean, this was basically this final push. I mean, basically, you live in a country where, you don't see much of the future. I mean, there's like nearly impossible to own an apartment, like I said before, own a car. It's just everything is basically, you look at all these other countries, people enjoy their lives, they travel. I mean, you watch all the movies, and just you want something better for yourself, right?
Were you exposed to other countries, Val, in terms
Yeah.
of that, or was that kind of thing kept away from people as much as possible? Was there propaganda? Like, how'd you know? How'd you know it was quote unquote better somewhere else?
Well, simply movies. That's basically all you see. I mean, obviously now I know this, not everything that you see in the movie, it's just true, right?
Right.
So you have, poverty in every single country. But, since I was by choice, forced to travel and seen all these different countries, I kind of learned all these different cultures, and I have very different perspective on life, than many other people. Because I lived, in Africa, in Algeria for a while, then in Italy for a while. Now I'm here, so I have a lot to compare. Not mentioning Poland and Russia. So my perspective on life and how hard you have to work to how rewarding hard work is. It's just much different, and that's what I'm teaching my kids.
God bless you. Love it. Paul, go ahead. I got $1 million.
Yeah, no. So if I'm following it right, you were a couple months or a month in Algeria, 9 months in Italy. So it was almost a year before you got to the US.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then you're there and in just a room with 13, 14 other guys making hardly no money. And you said every 6 months you'd just find a better job, find a better job.
Yeah.
I'm curious now because I know your wife very well. How long were you in the United States before you met your wife? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, jeepers.
I got you. No, that's fine. I'm going to say about 10 years.
Wow.
10 years.
It's crazy. And when you met her, you probably didn't even recognize yourself then to when you first came into the country.
That's true. Yes. I mean, my life improved every single time I switched jobs. So yeah, it was different. I tell you, like after first job, when somebody was telling me that they have saved $2,000, I said, "Holy smoke, that's so much money! How could you do that?" I mean, at some point, I had a job in Brooklyn, New York, right? But in order to save money, I was sharing an apartment in New Jersey. Okay. That means I had to commute 8 hours each way every single day. So I was still able to save money comparing to living in Brooklyn, but you have to sacrifice somewhere. Okay, so that's the kind of, you have to give something up, right? So I was giving up my time just to save a few bucks.
Yeah, you've touched on two of our key components that we talk about all the time, Val. One is perspective, and the other is trade-offs. Right? Everything in life's a trade-off, and
exactly.
You were making your trade-offs. Go ahead, Paul. I just wanted to point that out.
No, that's fabulous. It doesn't matter whether you grow up. Well, it matters, but I mean, whether you're in Poland or whether you're a child today in America that has everything somebody in Poland might never have. But you did something most people don't do, is you actually took action. I mean, you must have had a lot of friends that felt the same way as you, but they never left.
True. I mean, I had a friend that actually was part of this whole plan. I was supposed to meet with him in Europe. He was traveling different route. Unfortunately, he died in a car accident in Germany, so we never met. So basically, halfway through this whole journey, I'm on my own. So that's, there was a hope somewhere that, there will be two of us, and then suddenly, bang, you just, that hope disappeared. But it's throughout this whole journey, I met a lot of good people in Italy and even in Algeria that they helped me through this whole ordeal. And I'm very fortunate, very fortunate. I was fortunate then, and I'm very fortunate now, with everything. It's, throughout the struggle, still, you find a ways to get through it and find a better solution and just advance yourself.
Two more quick questions, then we'll move on from getting to America because there's so much else to talk about. You must have several times in that journey said, "What the hell am I doing?"
Oh, dude. Those 2 weeks in Greenpoint, they were the worst. Okay. And I mean, I'm telling you, if this was lot more depressive than being in this refugee camp, which I compare to prison. I mean, this was the worst time of my life. Well, there was one other time. There was like first week in on the tour where I was basically struggling with myself. Am I making the right decision? So I didn't sleep a single night throughout those 2 weeks while I was with this tour, right? And then finally you have to make the decision. But it wasn't as bad as that 2 weeks in Brooklyn where all these promises that all these visions that you had kind of like disappeared. Okay, I mean the life it's not as pretty as was in those movies that you watched before.
Yeah.
Right. And I said, holy crap, what did I do? Right. Am I going back or not? Right. So it took a while just to basically, get up and just find a ways. But, you just never give up and just, that, like I said, find different place to live, new job and just keep pushing. And that's the basically whole recipe to success. I guess you guys know it.
Yeah. So last question for me, and then we'll move forward. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what was your father's reaction? Because you said he got fired. Like, did he know you were going to leave? Back then it's not like you just text him, "Hey, Dad, I won't be home for a while."
No, we didn't have cell phones. No, nobody knew. I could not tell anyone that I was leaving because they would never let me leave. Okay, I would be stopped at the border and that would be the end of it. No, nobody knew. My family did not know. They learned later. All my friends back home, they were investigated, interviewed, and ultimately, after Algeria, when I made it, I believe I called them from Algeria after I left. That first month that I was there in Algeria, I called my parents and I told them. Okay. At that point, they knew that I wasn't coming back, so it was not a secret. Okay. Because then everybody on that plane that was with me, they were interviewed. So it was, there was nothing to hide. So I called my parents and I told them where I was, and that's how they learned.
Real quick, what would have happened had you been caught?
I can only speculate. What they probably would. Well, I would have to go to military. That's pretty much
Okay.
it. Jail maybe. Who knows?
Got it. Interesting. Paul, yeah, go ahead. We can move on. Like you said, there's a lot of other things. I was curious about that. I really didn't know.
So for the first 10 years, you're hopping around job to job, doing your thing, making more money, working your ass off. What made you want to start your own business? How'd you take that jump? Was there a connection, a network, or did you just say, let's do it?
No, there was a connection. We basically, Michelle and I, we worked together. Then there was one of the sales guys that worked in New Orleans, basically, we start talking, and basically we branched off from the company where we worked. Okay, so went into like direct competition with them. So we moved to New Orleans. We started business here where we, supply maritime industry. So basically ships, oil rigs, with medical supplies. We paired up with a local medical business. They had this like urgent care back then, we talking 98. Okay. There was no urgent cares. Okay. This one company was basically the company, the urgent care 24/7, basically open medical assistance, in New Orleans for maritime industry, right? So any ships, crew members from the ships would come there, and that pretty much started us off. And over years, all our partners they left for one reason or another, and basically Michelle and I just stay with the company and grew the company and keep running this company till today. So
Now, you mentioned you have children?
Yeah.
I think you said you had 4 children. What lessons do you, from your experience, and is this something your past, I guess? Is it something you talk about? Are there lessons in this you look for? Is it just like, hey, we're just like any other normal family and life goes on?
Well, they don't want to hear it anymore because they heard the story. Well, I landed at JFK with $9 in my pocket. Okay, that's the story that they hear all the time, right? So that they don't want to hear it anymore. But basically, what the way we operate now is anything that they do in life, and Paul knows through softball, with my daughter and all the struggles that my son has at school. Now he has all different internships. We try to basically explain them how to relate all their experiences to real life in the future. Okay, how this will affect them down the road. Okay, in regular workplace, and they getting it. Super proud of my kids. They are very successful, and it wasn't easy. They have to put some hard work, but that made them better person. So.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
No, go ahead. I can wait.
No, I mean, I don't know what your opinion is on this thing. I could guess, but I don't know if I'm right or not. I mean, what do you say? We get a lot of young listeners on this podcast, and I think it's pretty. My perspective is, there's a lot of, and this has always been the case with young people. They want to change the world, and wouldn't it be better if everything was equal and we had socialism and some of these things that you've been through, and I mean, what kind of advice, or what is your message to younger people who have those thoughts, and I'm not even saying they're wrong. I'm just curious what you think for someone who kind of grew up in that environment.
Very simple. Okay. The socialism, and then ultimately communist, because that's one thing leads to another. Okay.
Yep.
Kills progress. Okay. You don't. That's not a progress because everything it's controlled through central office, right? Through the government.
Yep.
There is no incentive for people to create things, okay, because they're not going to get rewarded for that. Okay, why would you go out of your way if everything what you develop will be taken away from you? Okay, because ultimately government owns it. Okay, I mean, there are the many examples through the history. I mean, they have this agriculture corporate. Cooperatives, where basically they bring all the farmers together in just one big land. Well, they don't care for this as much as they would care for their own stuff. I mean, you don't even have to go to all these communist countries, okay? Take our government, okay? If you go to DMV, right, it takes you forever, right? You wait in line, everybody's, nobody's hustling, nobody's doing anything, because it's not theirs. Okay, they really don't care, and it's just, if you don't have the sense of ownership that this is it, this is yours, you're responsible for that, there will be no progress. So I'm not saying everybody in government works that way because, also I run a bunch of softball tournaments, and our county basically owns the fields. I rent fields from the county, and the guys that work from the county guys, the maintenance guys that come in, they're very dedicated. They want to do right thing. That they want to show that Delaware, because I live in Delaware, it's actually a good destination, and they're proud of their work, right?
Sure.
So you're gonna have people like that they actually show it. Same thing, like the way I value my employees. If my employee will tell me, okay, we'll talk about my company, it's their problem. It's they do this, they do. If does not identify themselves with the company, it's we do things this way. Then it's just I have a problem with that. Okay, you work for the company, you're getting paid. You should identify yourself with the company, right? Take responsibilities. Okay, if you don't identify yourself with the company, then you really don't care about the company enough, right? And that's basically the problem is with socialism and communism. Okay, it sounds cool that everybody gets some kind of an equal shot, this and that, but you're always going to have people that take an advantage of the system, and just does not motivate people to work harder. Okay, they just bare minimum. I worked in Poland. Okay, we had a quota how much you have to do a day, and as soon as we done that, nobody worked. That's it.
Why would
You
you?
just sit around and just wait till the whistle blows, and that's it. End of the shift. That's the way it is in communism.
I feel, do you find yourself like you were 20 years old and went on that journey with no guarantees, not knowing what's going to happen, but you knew there was something else out there that could be better for you? Do you ever find yourself comparing that? I mean, it doesn't have to be your kids necessarily, but with the youth today, when the going gets tough for somebody and they're just like, oh man, you're lucky you own a business. I quit. I can't do it anymore. Do you see that a lot? Does it frustrate you, or don't you think about it? It's just different times.
I see that people say that, well, you own business, the life it's easier. Well, it's not, because I have to work a lot harder. If I don't show up for work, I don't make any money.
Right.
Okay. I mean, you can have a sick days. I cannot afford to have a sick days, because if I lose a customer, that customer translates to multiple other purchases throughout the year after year after year. So this one sick day might cost me, $30,000, maybe $80,000 over the time. Right. So it's not so simple. Own, owning business, it's not so easy. Okay. It's, especially small business. It's very, very, very hard. You get to the point where I always tell my kids, okay, well, yeah, you have to grow your business, but every single time you hit, you're gonna hit a barbed wire, okay, to go to the next level, okay, and it's very, very hard to get over that hump. And then, okay, you get over it eventually. You might sometimes you fail, and then you start climbing up again, what have you, and then you go to the next level. But guess what? At that level, there's another
More barbed wire.
just over another barbed wire. Okay, so it's just not so easy. Okay, there's always issues. Okay, and I mean, employees is probably the biggest problem. Okay, so going back to the communists. Okay, having the right people, is the key, because like in communism, everybody just don't know. I mean, the employees really don't care, and you have no sure no. You can. There's very difficult to find the right people that will actually care. Okay, most of the people would not care about it, because it's all guaranteed. You can't fire them, and they just look for easy way out, just to do bare minimum, and just
Path of least resistance, right? Path of least
Yeah.
resistance, and there's no incentive to do anything other than that.
Exactly. I mean, you go to all these countries, they hardly develop anything on their own. Okay, I mean, now it's a little bit different, because they have to. The military was strong, right? Because that's the only thing that they had going. Okay, but as far as private sector, okay, there was that such thing did not existed. Okay, and every single thing they had to like buy licenses, with all, even cars, right? They like in Russia, they have their car, but it was knockoff of Fiat, right? And everything is basically somebody else developed, and they just stole the technology. Okay, that's because there's like again, no incentives to better themselves and develop things. I mean, I have still don't no idea how they made it to space, but it's just basically again, it's a military thing.
Yeah. Yeah, all the resources got dumped into that, right? And
Exactly.
a lot of that was, this is my perspective, kind of marketing, right? Look what we're just as good, we're better than you are,
Oh,
even
yeah.
though from the inside it's nothing but rot and falling apart. But
Right.
we can keep this charade up at least a little while longer, and even if you steal the technology, like you said, well, you can't, then you got to steal the next version of it over and over
Mhm.
again, because there's no progress, right?
Exactly.
There's no progress, so you have no choice but to fall behind. And
Exactly.
I appreciate your perspective. I'm fascinated by the subject, almost more than anything, probably more than anything. I just don't understand, Val, how it lasted so long and how so many people were involved, and not to mention the gulags and all those other things that I'm fascinated by as well. That's obviously a whole different kind of type of topic on it, but I just I really can't understand the idea that that this is a better way. I can't wrap my head around it because I've read too much. I've talked to too many people. I can't. It's I can't understand it. But anyway, that's all. I appreciate your perspective more than you realize.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, on paper looks cool, right? It's just that they've been trying to sell this for a long time, that everybody gets rewarded, but the truth is there's nobody to be rewarded because there are no rewards. Okay. It's just everything is controlled by the government, and you have no incentives to do anything better than what's minimum required, and that's the problem. Um, I mean, I'm with you. I mean, it's probably because it's really police system, okay, and it's just like you said, Gulag. If you've been in Germany, so they had this secret service that almost every other German was spying on their friends.
That's in the Stasi. Yeah.
Ozzy, that's exactly what it was. Okay,
Yep.
so people cannot say anything because the next day they're going to be locked up. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's
We.
you basically
I'll t-
obey the master. Okay,
Yeah,
that's what.
I'll tell you a quick story of an experience I had in Germany, and we were in Germany, East Germany. This was a few, 2 or 3, when the war started, when Ukrainian
Mhm.
Russian conflict started, whatever we're calling it. But when that started, we were there, and when we travel, we tend to get local guides from the area because we want that perspective, right? We want to know what happened here in Munich or East Germany or Rome or wherever we go. So we had this guide, and she spoke English, and her husband was the driver for us, taking us around the city, and she spoke glowingly, and she was probably in her late 70s, I think. She spoke glowingly of the days of the communists in East Germany, and just how wonderful it was, and how everyone had an apartment, and everyone had their needs met, and how wonderful it was. And then she said how her husband was part of the Stasi, and that
Mhm.
they had not an apartment, but they had a top floor of the apartment, and there was status in it, obviously.
Mhm.
So obviously there are some people who are going to, like any system, right? It's not about how hard you work, I suppose. It's where you rank in that system. But she just loved it. Now I clearly disagree, but I was just fascinated with the way she spoke about it. It was so she was just reliving all those wonderful times, and now she was talking about how oh, everyone's poor, those kinds of things. And I just couldn't help but wonder what kind of world she was living in that time compared to 98% of the population.
Well, this is it because she was part of the system, or the family was part of the system. They didn't have to do much. Okay, they just did whatever they were required, spying on others, and they were rewarded for that. Okay, but this is not, what typical, you know, capitalism is, right? That basically you work harder, you get more. Okay, they were given basically for spying on somebody else,
Yeah.
right? And that's basically if you're part of the system, then you get rewards. Okay, and then everybody else will suffer, right? So that's what it is. And I mean, you guys have kids, you reward them for good work, right? And then if they not study hard enough, they have to go and hit books, right? Same thing, with adults. Okay, when you work hard, you get rewards. Okay, look, I cannot believe I cannot because I came here like with nothing, right? I had like literally $9 in my pocket, okay, and did not speak English well at all. Okay, I cannot accept that there are no opportunities and it's so hard to do this, that, and the other thing. I had absolutely nothing. You have to just work hard, okay, and rewards will come. Okay, you cannot. Nobody will ever convince me that socialism is better, and the handouts are justifiable, for people. No, I mean you have your two hands. You're not handicapped. You have no reason not to work. So I just can't accept any of these stupid excuses.
So I've taught it for years. I've always been on the side of capitalism. I think about this way too much. But I think it's just inherently how human beings are. So I said earlier, you were one of the action takers when you left, not knowing what's going to happen. I'll be generous and say that's 5% of the population. I don't know if it really is. But you have 5% of the population that wants to work hard, get into it, compete, make money, get rewarded. But a lot of people don't. And I think when you have the wrong people on top, they realize the control and herding the mob together to attack the 5% of the doers. That's where all the control and power comes from, right? And I think it's just a cycle. I think it's a cycle. I get worried it's happening here. I mean, it kind of is, but I'm hoping we snap out of it. But I don't know if there's any way to stop it sometimes because most people want something for nothing. And you lived it. Like anybody that talks to you be like, wow, he lived, but it's almost like they wouldn't believe your childhood.
Yeah, but okay, let just be also honest that even if you work hard, there are days, there are situations that you're gonna fail. Okay, I mean, we went down to like being nearly broke, a few times with this business. So it's not like everything it's rosy and all that stuff, right? But you never ever give up. Okay, I mean, I have a bunch of examples that I use for my kids, from sports or other areas where people who did not give up till the very last minute, actually at the end of the day they actually won. They rewarded. There was a positive outcome. Okay, so that's basically what I'm teaching my kids.
Yeah, and Paul, I know where you're coming from on that. The devil's advocate in me, or the flip side of that is, I think there's far too many people who think that's what they want. I think
Mhm.
what people truly want is what we talk about all the time, and is a meaning and a purpose and something to do, right? Something, that not to go to that factory and make widgets until the whistle blows all day and then come back and do it again the next, but to develop those widgets, or to sell those widgets, or to what get up and get into something, even if it means the inevitable failures that Val, you've obviously been through, and I've certainly been through many on my own right, and probably have, I suspect I have more ahead of me. um, but it's those things that make us feel alive. It's those things that make us feel human. It's those things that are special in our life. It's not the free, the free whatever, whether it's money, whether it's material stuff. That stuff does not do it for us. We need more than that. And Paul, I know we talk about it all the time. I know where you're coming from on that. But I mean, if I'm talking to people and people are listening, it's like, if you think you're going to find meaning and purpose and joy and someone putting money in your bank account so you can play video games all day, you're in for a rude awakening, because you will never find that joy and that meaning, that purpose, not doing hard things, not doing difficult things.
Well, I think that's like that's technically it, people easily get captured into that lifestyle, I guess is what I'm saying.
I know
And
exactly.
and
You're
it,
right.
I tell my students and players this a lot. I'm on a walk in the morning, and every day I go by the same house, and this dog comes running out at me and then stops because there's an invisible fence there, right? He thinks he's the master of his kingdom. And nope, can't go any further than that because that's my world. And the dog doesn't realize if he'd break through that 2, 3 seconds of pain, he'd be freer than he'd ever imagine or she'd ever imagine in his life. And I think once people are given what their perspective a little bit of freedom, they never break through that fence. Does that make sense? Hope I'm not ranting and rambling too much, but I feel that a lot. I feel most people get comfortable with said whatever, and they just don't bust through to that next level. What'd you say earlier, Val? Like the barbed wire, the next hurdle. Like every time you get to that next hurdle, you could stop, and at some point you would have said, "Oh, that's a pretty successful life." But people like you and Matt just keep going for whatever reason.
Oh, it's a very simple reason. If you stop, somebody else is going to pass by you.
Right, I know that. I get that,
Yeah.
But I think it's so easy for people to get trapped in that. Does that analogy make sense, or am I just rambling too much?
No, it makes perfect sense. I'm going to tell you, like a friend of mine, he is in construction business, so they build houses, right? So I said, dude, you have like such a cool job because every house you build, it's the custom houses, right?
Mm.
So it's so rewarding because you see, your accomplishment. You build something new every single time. I mean, to me, that's like the coolest job, because every single project, it's something new, and bam, you can see your accomplishments. I mean, same thing with doctors. It's basically same thing. You cure somebody, and it's just one project after another. You just take it and just run with it. Okay. So that's those kind of like cool jobs where you see those rewards like immediately, right? So it makes
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's what people want. I mean, we all like our downtime or to relax or whatever, but that's not what brings us that meaning. And you've got to do hard things. You've got to challenge yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
you've done more than most, and I would argue you've lived an interesting life and been rewarded in ways that people like, let's say, Paul, myself, who haven't gone through what you've had to go through, will never know and never feel. And I mean, in a weird way, I envy that, because you bring a different perspective to the world and to your life and to your family's life and friends' life that we're not capable of bringing. But that's when I talk about traveling other places. That's why I travel, because I can get a little taste of it. And I talk about reading. I can get a little taste of it just by reading and traveling. I won't have lived it like you've lived it firsthand, but I'm yearning for it. I'm itching for it, because whenever we're about to head to London and Croatia here in a month, and I always say, we go to Europe at least once a year now, and I always say to people, and I mean this sincerely, when I come back, Val, I am not the same person who left. I mean, I might look just as good, but I am a different person, and that's why we like to hire these guides. And I want to learn about, Churchill's bunker, and go visit the beer halls in Munich, where the Nazi party gained all its strength and it started, and all, whatever they happen to be, whatever these things are that are just so fascinating. I can't take those trips, come back, and look at the world the same way. I'm different, and I'm so grateful to have those opportunities.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Uh, we travel a lot, my whole family. So, the kids, they love it, because, they learn a lot. Okay. So traveling, it's really, really great, way of learning about, cultures, history. It's really nice way to spend time with family and just, have some fun. I mean, not everything. I mean, some trips are just simply pleasure, ski trips, whatever. But, we do a bunch of trips where we actually, learn about countries and history and, things like that. So that's neat.
Yeah.
I want to end with this. Obviously, you work hard, you keep working hard, you handle the heart of that, and you just know you're going to get through the process. How important were you must have met some important people and built a network and some relationships along the way, because there's no way you could have done that yourself. I'm not trying to take away the hard work, but did you meet some good mentors along the way, or was it just all Val?
It was pretty much Val and Michelle.
Okay, well,
we propel each other. I tell you, Paul, it's just I would not be able to do this without my wife. Okay.
Right.
And it was just us two. We just figuring everything out. Okay. I mean, we kind of like look what other businesses do. How they do things. We have some of our own ideas. No mentors. It's just us. Okay. We kind of like help each other out. Talk a lot. It's just pros and cons. And that's basically that's the way it's been.
I find that
love
rare,
that.
and I just find it rare, but that's super exciting. I kind of knew the answer, but
Yeah.
I'm
My
always
experience.
preaching.
I was just gonna say, Val. I just got to give credit to my wife as well. Without my wife, I don't know where I'd be at, I don't know where I'd be struggling at. I'd be trying, but I'd be struggling. Same thing. I couldn't possibly have done the things I've done without my wife. Absolutely essential, and it's made the journey and the ride that much more enjoyable. On top of that, so sorry, Paul. I just had to
No,
mention that.
so what you're both telling me is you both had mentors,
Yes.
your wives.
Yeah,
Okay.
my partners, if nothing else. Yeah,
No, I know partners,
yeah.
so.
But no, it's so important.
Yeah.
Val, I feel like we need to just dig back into your childhood. I'm so intrigued by all this. We don't have time today, but you're going to come back. Maybe we'll do it live next time
Sure. We can
in
do that.
person.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And in your new
Val-
place.
Yeah, Val spent time last summer. We spent 3 days in Watkins Glen together, Matt.
Oh,
Oh, is that
Well,
right?
our families,
Yeah,
not just
yeah,
Val and
yeah. Well, that's okay too. I don't care.
I. Yeah. We would have had a blast either way. But well, we appreciate you coming on. I just we love the stories. We love the ups and downs and the perspective of what everybody goes through, because you can get caught in your own little world where what you think is going on is so difficult. But if you just listen to some of the stories of other people, it gives you the inspiration to say, that's nothing. I can keep going. And I feel it's today more than ever, it's super hard. You can just get caught up in your own little tunnel or soapbox or whatever and think you're going through this struggle that people have had much worse before you. So thanks for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, Val. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Absolutely appreciate it, and your time. Thank you.
So
Thank you,
this is gonna be like Star Wars. We're gonna have a couple spin-offs and prequels.
We can do
And
that. Sure.
Val, the younger years, that
Do that.
Fascinating.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, don't go
Likewise.
anywhere. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Bye.